The house on County Road 12. From the ridgelines that cut across the Midwest like old scars to the forgotten backroads where cornfields swallow the horizon, every stretch of this country seems to keep something buried. Some stories belong to the mountains. Some cling to swamps and deserts. And some, like this one, rot quietly in plain sight just outside a college town that prides itself on being safe. If you drive far enough out of Madison, Wisconsin, past the neat suburbs and the tidy dairy farms, there used to be a narrow county road where the trees leaned too close together. About half a mile down that road stood a two-story farmhouse that looked as if time had punched it in the face and left it there. The paint had long since peeled away. The porch sagged like it was tired of holding itself up. Most of the windows were cracked, and the yard had surrendered to weeds years ago. No cars. No lights. No sign that anyone had cared about it in a very long time. When we were 16, that house might as well have had a neon sign above it that read, "Go inside." My best friend Tyler and I weren't troublemakers. We weren't vandals. We just had that restless curiosity that comes with being teenagers in a place where nothing ever seems to happen. We'd ride our bikes past that house almost every weekend, slowing down just enough to stare. "Bet there's something crazy in the attic," Tyler would say. "Or a safe in the basement," I'd reply. "Old cash. Jewelry. Something." We'd laugh, but neither of us ever stepped foot on the property. Not at first. It's easy to fantasize about exploring abandoned places. It's harder when you're actually standing in front of one. That changed one Saturday in late September. The sky was clear, the air cool, but not cold. It was around 1 in the afternoon, broad daylight. That detail matters, because what happened didn't unfold under the cover of darkness. There were no storms, no dramatic lightning, just a quiet rural afternoon. We ditched our bikes in the brush near the tree line and walked up the gravel driveway. The crunch under our shoes sounded too loud. I remember glancing around, half expecting someone to shout at us. No one did. Up close, the house looked worse. The front steps bowed inward. The door hung slightly crooked in its frame. Tyler wiped a circle in one of the front windows with his sleeve and squinted inside. "Can't see anything," he muttered. "It's filthy." I tried the doorknob mostly as a joke. It turned. We froze. "Dude," Tyler whispered. The door creaked inward with a long, dry groan. The smell hit us immediately. Stale air, mildew, something sour underneath it all. The kind of odor that settles into places that haven't been opened in years. "Hello," Tyler called, half laughing. "Anyone home?" His voice echoed down a narrow hallway. Nothing answered. We stepped inside anyway. The light was dim despite it being early afternoon. The windows were so coated in grime that they barely let anything through. I flicked the nearest light switch out of habit. It did nothing. "Power's dead," I said. "Obviously," Tyler replied, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. We let our eyes adjust and moved forward slowly. The floorboards creaked under our weight. To the left was what must have been the living room. A couch sagged in the center, its stuffing exposed. A coffee table leaned at an angle. Cobwebs stretched from the ceiling corners like old lace. At first glance, it looked exactly like you'd expect. And then we saw it. Near the far wall, set up on a tall tripod, stood a video camera. Not an old one. Not some dusty relic from the 90s. It looked new. Sleek. Black. Clean. It was pointed directly at the wall opposite it. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. The camera didn't belong there. Everything else in that room was rotting, decaying, layered in dust. The camera wasn't. "Is that?" Tyler started. "Yeah," I said quietly. The floor in front of the camera had been cleared. No debris. No broken plaster. Just bare wood. Sheets were spread out in a neat rectangle, and the furniture along the walls was covered in clear plastic sheeting. The plastic was clean too. A tight, heavy feeling settled in my stomach. "This isn't random," I muttered. Tyler took a step toward it. "Maybe someone's filming something? Like a student project. In an abandoned house." Before he could answer, we both heard it. A sharp metallic click. It came from somewhere behind us. We turned in unison. Another sound followed, the unmistakable thud of a door shutting. Not the front door. We were still standing in the hallway leading to it. The back door. For a split second, my brain tried to explain it away. Wind. Old hinges. Anything. Then came the sound of a lock sliding into place. Tyler's eyes widened. Did you? Yeah. Adrenaline hit like a punch. Front door, I said. We moved fast, too fast. My shoulder clipped the hallway wall as we bolted. The house, which had felt dead moments ago, suddenly felt crowded. Every creak of wood seemed louder, every shadow deeper. Halfway to the door, we heard footsteps above us. Not one set. Several. Heavy. Quick. Moving toward the staircase. And then voices. Low. Muffled. Urgent. I couldn't make out words, but I knew what it was. More than one person coming down. Tyler swore under his breath. We reached the front door just as another sound split the air, the faint scrape of something outside. Gravel shifting. Someone was out there too. I yanked the door open. Sunlight flooding the hallway. We didn't hesitate. We ran. As we burst onto the porch, I glanced to my right and my stomach dropped. A man stood near the edge of the yard, just beyond the front steps. He wasn't old. Maybe mid-30s. Jeans. Work boots. A dark jacket. He had one hand still resting near the side of the house, like he'd just been reaching for something. Like a lock. He didn't shout. He didn't chase us immediately. He just stared. His expression wasn't angry. It wasn't surprised either. It looked annoyed. Behind us, inside the house, the footsteps hit the first floor. I heard the staircase groan under weight. Go! Tyler yelled. That snapped whatever spell had held the man in place. He took a step forward. We were already sprinting. Gravel sprayed behind us as we tore down the driveway. I didn't look back again. I didn't need to. I could hear movement. At least one of them had come out onto the porch. But none of them followed past the yard. When we reached the tree line, lungs burning, we didn't slow down. We grabbed our bikes and pedaled like we were being chased by something you don't want catching up. We didn't stop until we were nearly 2 miles away. Only then did we allow ourselves to breathe. What the hell was that? Tyler gasped. I don't know, I said, though part of me did. They'd been waiting. The camera. The cleared space. The plastic-covered furniture. The locked back door. The man moving toward the front at the same time. They hadn't stumbled upon us. They'd set the stage and waited for someone curious enough to walk in. We told our parents everything that night. Every detail. For once, neither of us tried to downplay it. The police eventually checked the property. By the time they did, the house was empty. No camera. No plastic sheets. No sign that anyone had been there recently at all. Just dust. Rot. Silence. A few months later, the house was demolished. Officially, it was deemed structurally unsafe. Unofficially, no one ever explained what we saw. I've replayed that afternoon in my head more times than I can count. If we'd hesitated a few seconds longer, if the front door had stuck, if that man had been quicker. I don't let my thoughts finish that sentence. What unsettles me most isn't the idea that they targeted us specifically. It's worse than that. They were already inside. Which means they didn't lure us. They were simply waiting for whoever came through that door. And in a country this big, with this many forgotten houses along back roads and county highways, I doubt that was their first setup. Or their last. The hunter in the snow. Alaska doesn't feel like the rest of the United States. Even when you're standing in a crowded bar in Anchorage, music playing, glasses clinking, neon lights buzzing overhead, there's this underlying awareness that beyond the parking lot and the highway, there's nothing but wilderness. Endless stretches of forest. Snow that swallows footprints. Mountains that don't care whether you make it home. In the late 1970s, my Aunt Carol worked nights at a club just outside Anchorage city limits. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the kind of place anyone brought up at family dinners. But it paid well, and Carol needed the money. She wasn't one of the dancers. She worked the bar, quick with a pour, quicker with a joke. If you're going to stand behind a counter serving drinks to oil workers, truckers, and lonely men blowing paychecks, you learn fast how to read people. You get good at spotting trouble, she once told me. It's a survival skill. The club had its regulars. Men who came in 3-4 nights a week. Some loud and harmless. Some quiet and watchful. Some who tipped well, and some who didn't tip at all. And then there was him. He didn't stand out at first. Average height.
Slim.
Wire-frame glasses. Acne scars that looked like they'd never fully faded. He dressed neatly, button-down shirts tucked into jeans, clean boots. He didn't drink heavily. Usually just a beer or two. He was polite. Soft-spoken. Always said please and thank you. His name was Robert. He tipped generously. That's how he gets you, Carol said years later. Not with charm. With normalcy. He'd sit at the same section of the bar, off to the side, where he could see the stage but wasn't in the center of the action. Sometimes he'd make small talk. Ask Carol about her shift. The weather. Hunting season. He talked about hunting a lot.
Moose. Caribou.
Tracking in deep snow. He described it in detail, not bragging, just explaining. The patience required. The satisfaction of the chase. Back then in Alaska, that wasn't unusual. Half the state hunted. He never crossed a line. Never said anything crude. Never got handsy. Compared to some of the others, he was a model customer. After a few months, he started opening up more. He told Carol he owned a small bakery downtown. That he flew a plane as a hobby. That he liked the quiet. That he preferred the company of nature to people. He said people disappointed him, she recalled. Animals were honest. One night, close to closing time, he lingered at the bar while the last of the customers filtered out. Carol was wiping down the counter when he cleared his throat. My birthday's this weekend, he said. She smiled automatically. Oh yeah? Big plans. He nodded. Having some people over. A little get-together at my place. Nothing crazy. He paused. You should come. Carol straightened slightly. It wasn't unheard of for customers to make invitations. Most of the time, it was harmless. That's sweet, she said carefully. But I've got plans. You can ride with me, he added quickly. It's not far. Out toward the valley. I've got a cabin. Something about the way he said it, too rehearsed, too eager, made her hesitate. A cabin, she asked. Yeah, he said, smiling faintly. Quiet out there. Peaceful. You'd like it. She told him she appreciated the invite but wouldn't be able to make it. She kept her tone light, professional. No hard rejection. Just boundaries. For a moment, he said nothing. Then his expression shifted, not angry, not exactly. Just disappointed. I see, he said. He left a smaller tip than usual that night. After that, he still came in, but less frequently. The conversations shortened. The easy friendliness cooled. And then, eventually, he stopped coming altogether. Carol forgot about him. Life moved on. Shifts blurred together. Faces came and went. In a place like that, customers disappear all the time. They move. They get married. They find new haunts. A few years later, Carol was at home watching the evening news when she saw a familiar face on the screen. It took her a few seconds to place him without the glasses. The anchor spoke in a steady, controlled tone, the way they do when the details are too heavy for dramatic flair. A local man had been arrested. Robert Hansen. Authorities believed he had abducted multiple women over several years. Most of them connected to clubs and nightlife in Anchorage. Women who might not be immediately missed. Women who, in the harsh sprawl of Alaska, could vanish without much noise. The report outlined what investigators had uncovered. He would approach women, often offering money or help, gain their trust, or force them. He'd take them to his cabin in the Matanuska Valley. From there, the details grew darker. He would fly some of them out to remote areas, release them into the wilderness, give them a head start. Then he would hunt them, not metaphorically, with a rifle, sometimes a knife. Search parties had combed sections of forest and found shallow graves. Personal items kept as trophies. Maps marked with locations. Carol sat frozen on the couch. That's him, she whispered to no one. The polite man at the bar. The soft voice. The generous tips. The talk of hunting. The cabin in the valley. The birthday invitation. Police later confirmed at least 17 victims, though many believe the number was higher. 17. Think about that number. 17 women who likely had the same brief internal debate Carol had when he extended that invitation. 17 who may have thought, he seems normal. What's the harm? Alaska's wilderness doesn't need to hide bodies. It absorbs them. To this day, statistics about missing persons in Alaska circulate in articles and documentaries. The terrain, the isolation, the weather, all perfect conditions for a disappearance. But the most dangerous part wasn't the snow or the forest. It was how ordinary he seemed. When Carol tells the story now, she doesn't dramatize it. She doesn't embellish. He wasn't a monster in the way you expect, she says. He didn't look like one. He didn't act like one. That's the point. She's certain of one thing. The invitation wasn't casual. He didn't invite other bartenders. He didn't bring friends to the club. He was selective. If she had accepted that ride, if she had gotten into his car and let him drive her just a little way out toward the valley, there's a real chance she would have become another search in the snow. Another unsolved disappearance in a state full of them. What unsettles me most about her story isn't just the brutality of what he did. It's how close evil can stand to you without setting off alarms. It can smile. It can tip well. It can talk about the weather and ask about your day. And sometimes, the only difference between becoming a headline and going home safe is a gut feeling you can't quite explain. Carol trusted hers. 17 others didn't get that chance. The thing in still water. Idaho doesn't advertise its darkness. When people think of it, they picture postcard lakes, evergreen forests, quiet cabins with smoke curling from chimneys. The kind of place where you unplug for a weekend and come back reset.
Clean air.
No traffic. No noise. That's exactly what we wanted. My friend Mark's parents owned a small log cabin near McCall, tucked along the edge of a lake that barely showed up on maps. You had to leave the highway, take a narrow gravel road for miles, and then follow a dirt path that felt more like a suggestion than an actual route. No neighbors. No streetlights. No cell service unless you stood in one specific spot on the dock and held your phone up like you were signaling a rescue plane. It was perfect. It was me, Mark, and Dylan. 3 guys in our early 20s looking to drink cheap beer, swim, and pretend we were rugged outdoorsmen for 48 hours. We got there late afternoon. The lake was glassy and blue, reflecting the treeline so perfectly it looked twice as deep. The cabin itself was small but sturdy. 2 bedrooms, a loft, a stone fireplace that hadn't been used in years. We unpacked, cracked open drinks, and spent the last of the daylight diving off the wooden dock. The water was freezing, but in that way that makes you feel alive. We wrestled, splashed, shoved each other under. Nothing unusual. Just noise and laughter echoing across empty shoreline. By the time darkness settled in, we were sunburned, buzzed, and exhausted. Inside, we played cards at the wooden table near the front windows. A single lamp lit the room in a warm yellow glow. Outside, the lake had disappeared into blackness. Around 11 p.m., something changed. I can't describe it cleanly, which makes it worse. The forest went silent. Not quieter, silent. No wind. No insects. No distant animal calls. Even the subtle lapping of water against the dock seemed to stop. Dylan was mid-sentence when he trailed off. "You guys feel that?" he asked. Mark looked toward the window.
Yeah. There was no sound to point to.
No movement. Just a pressure in the air. Like the atmosphere itself had thickened. It lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then, a splash. Not the kind you make when you jump in. Not a rock hitting water. It sounded massive.
Heavy.
Like something the size of a refrigerator had been dropped from a height. All 3 of us shot to our feet. "What the hell was that?" I said. We rushed outside. The night air hit cold against my skin. The dock stretched ahead into darkness. The lake's surface should have been rippling violently after a splash like that. It wasn't. The water was nearly flat. But about 20 feet from the dock, something floated. At first, it was just a darker shape against black water. We moved closer to the edge. It was a body, face down, arms slightly out, shirt plastered to its back. It wasn't drifting fast, just slowly rotating in place. Holy, Dylan choked. My brain scrambled for logic. Maybe a missing swimmer? But there hadn't been boats. No cabins nearby. No headlights on the distant shore. Mark didn't hesitate. He jogged down the dock toward the end, kneeling as the body drifted within reach. "Call 911, he barked. I fumbled my phone out and sprinted to the one patch of weak signal near the tree line. The call barely connected. I gave our location as best I could, stumbling over directions. Behind me, I heard Mark inhale sharply.
Not a yell.
Not yet. Just a sharp, sudden breath. Dylan stepped onto the dock. "You got him." That's when Mark screamed. It wasn't a tough guy shout. It was high and raw and terrified. I turned. Mark stumbled backward from the edge of the dock, nearly falling into the water. His face had gone completely pale. "What happened?" Dylan shouted. Mark scrambled to his feet and rushed past him. "Get inside," he snapped.
Now. What?
"We can't just." "Get inside." There was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Not panic. Not confusion.
Fear.
Dylan hesitated only a second before following him back toward the cabin. I stayed frozen long enough to glance at the water again. The body was still there, face down, not moving. I ran inside. We locked the door, though it felt pointless. The windows were thin, the walls old. "What did you see?" I demanded. Mark shook his head. "Nothing we can fix." That's not an answer.
He didn't respond.
We waited. Every few seconds, one of us peeked through the window. The shape was still floating near the dock. Red and blue lights finally cut through the trees nearly 40 minutes later. 2 deputies stepped out of the cruiser. We rushed outside to meet them, talking over each other, pointing toward the lake. "There's a body out there," Dylan said. "Right by the dock." The deputies approached the shoreline with flashlights. The beam skimmed across still water. "Nothing." "No, it was right there," I insisted, stepping closer. The lake reflected only moonlight and trees. One deputy radioed for search support anyway. Within the hour, more responders arrived. They brought a small boat. Later, divers. They searched until nearly 3 a.m. No body. No clothing. No disturbance in the mud below the dock. Nothing. "You boys been drinking?" one of the deputies asked eventually. "Yes," I said, "but not that much." They took our statements, skeptical but not dismissive. A splash that large would have left ripples. A body wouldn't simply vanish in a lake that small without sinking, and even then, divers would have found something. Unless there was never a body, but there was.
I saw it.
We all did. The deputies left just before dawn. None of us slept. When the sun rose, the lake looked harmless again.
Blue. Calm.
Ordinary. We packed up by noon. The drive back was quiet. It wasn't until a week later that Mark told me what happened on the dock. We were alone when he said it. "I didn't want to say it in front of Dylan," he began. "Say what?" He swallowed. When I reached down to grab the guy's shoulder, he moved. I felt my stomach drop. He rolled just enough for me to see his face. Mark continued. His skin looked wrong. Pale, but not like someone drowned. More like it had been underwater for months. And his eyes.
He stopped.
"What about his eyes?" I asked. "They were open." "That's not impossible." "They weren't normal." I waited. "They were cloudy."
White.
And he was looking right at me. Silence stretched between us. "And then," I said finally. Mark's voice lowered. He smiled. I almost laughed, but his expression stopped me. "And he grabbed my wrist," Mark said. Hard. My throat tightened. "What did he say?" Mark didn't answer immediately. Then, quietly, he said, "Why you and not the other one?" I felt cold despite the summer heat. "The other one?" I repeated.
"Dylan," Mark said.
He looked past me when he said it. I tried to pick it apart.
stress, shock,
adrenaline-warping memory. But Mark wasn't dramatic. He wasn't prone to fantasy. He'd refused to even watch horror movies most of the time. "You sure?" I asked. He nodded once. When I jerked back, his hand slipped off. I blinked, and he was face down again. Like nothing happened. We never went back to that cabin. I've researched drownings, hallucinations, shared delusions. None of it explains the splash, the silence, the body that 3 people saw. What unsettles me most isn't the disappearance. It's the question. Why you and not the other one? It implies choice.